Have you ever looked at someone in their 80s and wondered, what is actually happening inside their body right now? Because here's what nobody tells you. There are 5 specific things that begin happening the moment you cross that milestone. And they happen whether you prepare for them or not, whether you're healthy or not, whether you want them to or not. And I'm not here to scare you. I'm not selling you a supplement. I'm not pushing a program. Everything I'm going to share with you today is already within your reach, in your kitchen, in your daily routine, in the choices you're already making every single morning. But if you don't know about these 5 things, they will quietly work against you. And by the time most people notice, it's already been years. So stay with me until the end, because what I'm going to show you in the next few minutes could genuinely change how the next decade of your life feels, not just for you, but for the people who love you. Let's start with a question. When you picture someone who is 80 years old, what do you see? Do you see someone frail, slow, confused, hunched over a walker, unable to remember where they put their keys? Or do you see someone sharp, active, laughing at dinner, walking without help, still driving themselves to their doctor's appointments? Here's the truth that most doctors don't have time to sit down and explain to you. Both of those people are 80 years old. Both of them have the same number of candles on the cake, but their bodies, their brains, their bones, their hearts, their muscles, they are living in completely different realities. And the difference between those 2 people was not luck. It was not genetics alone. It was 5 specific biological processes that one of them understood and the other did not. Now here's the part that might surprise you. These 5 things I'm about to tell you, they don't start at 80, they start years before. Some of them start as early as your 50s and 60s, quietly, slowly, invisibly, and by the time you hit 80, they are in full force. Which means if you're watching this and you're in your 60s or 70s right now, you are sitting at the most important window of your life. The decisions you make in the next year will determine which version of 80 you become. That is not an exaggeration. That is biology. So let's talk about what's really happening. Thing number 1. Your muscle mass begins disappearing at an accelerated rate. Stay with me here because this is not just about looking thin or weak. This is about your independence. Here's what happens inside your body after 80. There is a process called sarcopenia. It sounds complicated, but the concept is simple. Think of your muscles like a savings account. Every decade of your life, your body makes small withdrawals. You lose a little muscle. You rebuild a little muscle. The balance stays roughly okay, but after 80, something shifts. The withdrawals get bigger. The deposits get smaller. And your body starts pulling from that account faster than you can put anything back in. Now here's why this matters so much. It's not just about strength. Your muscles are your metabolism. They are the engine that burns your calories, regulates your blood sugar, keeps your joints stable. When muscle mass drops, everything else starts to wobble. The risk of falling goes up. The risk of fractures goes up. The ability to recover from illness, even a simple flu, goes down dramatically. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 78 years old, living in Ohio. Her daughter brought her in because she had fallen twice in 6 months. Not from any major accident. She simply lost her balance getting up from a chair. The second time, she fractured her wrist. When they assessed her, her muscle mass was that of someone 15 years older. She hadn't stopped moving on purpose. She had simply never been told that after a certain age, you have to actively, intentionally fight to keep muscle. Her body wasn't going to do it automatically anymore. Within 8 months of a targeted protein and movement plan, nothing extreme, nothing that required a gym, Margaret's muscle density improved measurably. She has not fallen since. She is now 81 years old, and she walks her dog every morning. The change was not dramatic. It was consistent. And it started with understanding what was happening inside her body. Back to our topic. Because sarcopenia is just the beginning. Thing number 2. Your brain begins to shrink, literally. I want you to sit with that for a moment because it sounds frightening, but understanding it is what protects you. After the age of 80, the human brain loses volume at a rate of approximately 0.5% per year. That might sound small, but it's not happening evenly. It's concentrated in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, memory, focus, and emotional regulation. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is a city, and every year a few buildings in the financial district start going dark. The lights are still on everywhere else. But the headquarters, the command center, is getting quieter. Now here's the part almost no one talks about. This brain shrinkage is not inevitable in the way most people assume. Research published in the journal Neurology found that certain lifestyle factors, specifically physical activity, social engagement, and omega-3 fatty acid intake, were directly associated with measurably slower rates of brain volume loss. Translation: what you do every day literally determines how fast or slow your brain shrinks. This is not a small finding. This is one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience, and yet most people over 80 have never heard it. Are you writing this down? Because I want you to really absorb this. You have more control over your brain's trajectory than you have ever been told. Thing number 3. Your immune system stops recognizing threats as quickly. Here's something that will completely change how you think about getting sick after 80. There's a phenomenon called immunosenescence. Again, complicated word, simple idea. Your immune system, which has been your bodyguard for 8 decades, starts getting slower, not weaker in every way, just slower to respond. When a young person encounters a new virus or bacteria, their immune system identifies the threat, sounds the alarm, and launches a full attack within hours. When someone over 80 encounters the same threat, that alarm system takes longer to go off, and by the time the full response kicks in, the infection has had more time to establish itself. This is why a simple respiratory infection that a 50-year-old shakes off in 4 days can become a 2-week ordeal for someone who is 82. It's not weakness of character, it's biology. But here's the hope inside this challenge. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that specific nutritional patterns, particularly adequate zinc, vitamin D, and fermented food intake, directly support immune response time even in adults over 80. These are not exotic supplements. Zinc is in eggs, vitamin D is in sunlight and fatty fish. Fermented foods include yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, things you may already have in your refrigerator right now. Let me tell you about Ronald. Ronald is 83 years old, a retired school principal from Florida. For 3 years in a row, every winter, he ended up hospitalized with a respiratory illness. His doctors kept adjusting his medications, but no one sat down and talked to him about nutrition and immune function. His niece, who is a registered dietitian, came to visit and quietly overhauled what he was eating. More protein, more zinc-rich foods, a daily vitamin D supplement, plain Greek yogurt every morning. The following 2 winters, Ronald did not get hospitalized once. He had minor colds. He recovered. He kept going. Was it just the food? We can't say with absolute certainty, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Thing number 4. Your heart works harder for the same results. This one is crucial, and it's something most people only discover after they've already had a problem. After 80, the heart muscle itself becomes stiffer. The walls of the heart thicken slightly. The valves that open and close with every single heartbeat start to lose some of their elasticity, and the result is that your heart, which has been beating faithfully for over 80 years, now has to work harder to pump the same amount of blood. Think of it like a garden hose that's been left in the sun for decades. It still works, but it's lost some of its flexibility, and when you turn on the water pressure, the hose strains a little more than it used to. Now here's why this is so dangerous and so underappreciated. Because the heart compensates. It adapts. It works harder quietly, and the person living in that body often doesn't feel it until the system is pushed past what it can silently compensate for. This is why sudden exertion, dehydration, extreme heat or cold, and emotional stress hit people over 80 so much harder than younger people. Their heart is already operating at a higher baseline effort. There's less margin for extra demand. But here's what the research tells us, and I want you to hear this clearly. A study from the Mayo Clinic found that adults who engaged in consistent moderate aerobic activity, even walking 30 minutes a day, maintained measurably better cardiac elasticity into their 80s and beyond compared to sedentary adults of the same age. 30 minutes. Walking. That's it. The timing and consistency of that simple habit was the difference between a heart that struggled and a heart that sustained. Now I'm going to tell you the right way to think about this, because it's not about running marathons at 80. It's about keeping the pump primed, keeping the hose flexible, giving your heart the one thing it desperately needs: gentle, regular movement. Thing number 5. Your sense of purpose becomes a biological necessity. I saved this one for last because it is the most surprising. And for many people, it is the most powerful. After 80, something happens in the brain and nervous system that researchers are only beginning to fully understand. Social isolation and lack of purpose do not just affect mood. They accelerate physical decline at a measurable, documented rate. A landmark study from Brigham Young University analyzed data from over 3 million people and found that loneliness and social isolation increased the risk of early death by 26 to 32%. That is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. Loneliness is as dangerous to an 80-year-old body as smoking. Not emotionally dangerous, physically dangerous. It raises cortisol levels chronically, it suppresses immune function, it disrupts sleep architecture, it accelerates the exact brain shrinkage we talked about earlier. But here is the flip side, and this is where this gets genuinely exciting. Research from the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center found that adults over 80 who had a strong sense of purpose, who felt that their life had meaning and direction, experienced slower cognitive decline, lower rates of Alzheimer's development, and significantly better physical health outcomes across the board. Purpose is not a luxury in your 80s. It is medicine. Let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor is 84 years old. He lost her husband at 79. Within 2 years, her health began a rapid and visible decline. Her children were worried. Her doctor kept adding medications. But what Eleanor had lost wasn't a treatable condition. It was her reason to get up in the morning. Her daughter signed her up. almost against her will, to volunteer at the local library twice a week, reading to children. Within 6 months, Eleanor's blood pressure had improved. She was sleeping better. She was calling her grandchildren without being reminded. Her doctor, at her next checkup, quietly reduced one of her medications. Eleanor will tell you herself. She didn't get medicine. She got a reason. Now I want to pull all 5 of these together, because here's where the real power lives. These 5 things, muscle loss, brain shrinkage, immune slowdown, cardiac stiffening, and the biology of purpose, they are not separate problems. They are connected. They feed each other, and they are all influenced by the same set of daily decisions. Movement protects your muscles and your heart and your brain. Nutrition supports your immune system and your cardiac health and your cognitive function. Social connection and purpose protect your brain and your immune system and your emotional resilience. This is not 5 separate battles. This is one war fought on multiple fronts with the same simple weapon. And here's what I need you to understand before you close this video. The window to make a difference is not gone at 80. It is not even gone at 85. The research is clear. The human body responds to positive change at every age. Your muscles will respond to protein and movement at 82. Your brain will respond to social stimulation and omega-3s at 84. Your heart will respond to gentle, consistent activity at 87. The biology doesn't give up on you. The only question is whether you give up on it. Now let me give you the 5 protective actions, one for each thing we discussed. For muscle loss, aim for at least 25 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. Not a protein shake necessarily. Eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, legumes, and walk. Even 10 minutes after each meal makes a measurable difference in muscle preservation. For brain shrinkage, prioritize omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish like salmon or sardines at least twice a week. Do something mentally challenging every day. Not crossword puzzles necessarily, but anything that requires you to learn something new. A language app, a new card game, a book outside your comfort zone. For immune slowdown, talk to your doctor about your vitamin D level. It is chronically low in most adults over SE.